How's it going, everybody? TheMythicalPickle here, and welcome back to another Fallout New Vegas video. The other day, I was surfing the Nexus in search of some new and interesting mods for New Vegas. You know, typical 4 AM activities. And I came across this one particular mod that got me thinking. Ghostification. This mod basically completely turns you into one of the ghost people from the gas-ridden courtyards of the Serria Madre. So, you know exactly where I'm gonna go with this. Today, we will answer the question, can you beat Fallout New Vegas Dead Money DLC as a ghost person? Now, without further ado, let's lay down some ground rules for the challenge run this time around. To start off, we have some standard rules that are likely to be seen in future challenge runs. That is, no companions of any kind aside from quest mandatory ones, of course. And be mindful, the Dead Money DLC has quite a few follower quest requirements, but I think we'll manage. Also, I must stay in character with all dialogue choices and fraction decisions. And last but certainly not least, I must beat the main quest. Now for our more unique rules, just as I indicated a little bit ago, we will be playing the role of one of the many ghost people that stalk the lands of Serria Madre, which means we will be forced to use only weapons available to the ghost people, that being the bear trap fist, throwing spears, knife spears, and the gas bombs. And to further the challenge, I also will be restricted to wearing the Ghost Hazmat suit, which has little to no armor rating, but one major benefit is its immunity to the red gas that plagues this DLC. Also, I noticed that the ghost animations were very good on our player characters, so you'll definitely see me in third person a lot more than normal throughout this run. Not really a requirement, but I thought I'd mention it here. And just like my last challenge run, we will be running a few mods to help the game function a little smoother, as well as match the theme we've set. I made it a point to only pick mods that will in no way make me overpowered or render the challenge useless, but rather make the challenge feel a little more fresh and engaging. Now, with all that out of the way, let's dive right in, shall we? After picking a legendary name, I drifted on over to the Perk-O-Matic and got to setting up my special stats. Now, since the ghost people have a relatively diverse arsenal, I wanted to make sure I could handle the use of any of the equipment. So, I put a great bit on strength as I wanted to make sure that Bear Trap Fist and the spears had a good amount of power behind them. A little bit on perception, as I'm definitely going to want to take advantage of that double melee damage and VATS when necessary. Also, I put a good amount on endurance, as I really didn't want to walk into this level 20 plus DLC without having at least a moderate amount of health and stamina. I dropped charisma down to 1, as a slightly feral human probably isn't going to be a great conversationalist. And I put those points on intelligence, as I really need to level up as fast as possible, and left the rest as default. Now that I had my special points squared away, it was time to pick our perks. Here I went with repair, because it really isn't New Vegas without repairing things constantly, and the other two skills were survival and unarmed, both of which should help me out greatly within the barren landscape of the Serria Madre villas. And finally, for the traits I selected, Ghostification, as this run couldn't exist without it, and Wild Wasteland, cause, well, you know, why not? Now that we're perked up, I limped my way over to the exit, and at long last, we were free to roam the Mojave. So, of course, the first thing I did was set a marker for the abandoned Brotherhood of Steel bunker, and booked it. Now, thankfully this mod provided us with the Bear Trap Fist to start, as we picked the unarmed skill when setting up our character. So, I was able to quickly dispatch most of the lurking predators that stood in my way. Although I did have to cut through Black Mountain, which ended with a few headless super mutants and a lot of manic running from centaurs and an army of radroaches. But at long last, we arrived at the bunker location. So I started my journey on down the hall into the living quarters, only to be hit with standard grade funny gas, and I was out for the count. Upon awaking in a strikingly red environment, I was forced to speak to a floating head who decided to blackmail me into helping him by putting a bomb collar on our boy Casper. So I begrudgingly began our first mission, which was to retrieve our fellow collared pals. But just before I did some searching around and picking up random stuff that I saw as useful, as I was stripped of literally everything except for the clothes on my back when coming in here. So every little bit helps. Now that I had at least a little bit of supplies under my belt, I journeyed to find Caller 8, which was but a leisurely stroll until it happened. I found my long-lost brethren, but you see, as cool as it is that they didn't want to harm me, that just wasn't gonna slide, as the ghost people of the Serria Madre are virtually the only hostile NPCs in the entirety of the DLC. So I bid our new friend farewell and tucked around at the corner to promptly fix that problem. Ah yes, there's the weird little demons we know and love. No. Wait. Okay, this is gonna be a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. But I persevered and finally acquired our first weapon, the kitchen knife on a stick. Then I continued down the winding path to the police station, where I found Dog just kinda hanging out in the holding cell. This one couldn't have been easier to find, right? Wrong, as if you recall, we have a bomb strapped to our neck, and it has the slightest bit of an issue of blowing up around radios for some reason, which, of course, this place is chock full of. So, I spent the next few minutes happily finding every radio in this place and promptly shutting them down. Then I played a nice little message to Dog, which riled him up so much that he completely shifted personalities and insisted I refer to him as God. Seems like a bit of a power trip if you ask me, but after discussing what the plan was with God, he definitely didn't seem pleased with the idea of helping. Which, I mean, fair enough, but it should be noted that all choices I'm making with this DLC are based on the fact that a ghost person, such as Casper, that has seen many of his brothers and sisters get trapped here, forever roaming the streets, would want nothing more than to escape this purgatory. So, with self-preservation in mind, I let God know that he wasn't in charge anymore, and he snapped back into the much more manageable and understanding Dog, whom I promptly asked to meet me at the floating head fountain. Now that Dog was secured, we still had 2 other friends to find, so the next one I chose was none other than Dean Domino, a 50s style singer turned ghoul that had a particularly self-righteous way of carrying himself. But before I could chat with the ghoulish curmudgeon, I had to battle my way through a large amount of fellow ghost people. Now that I had every ghost weapon at my disposal, I journeyed through the remaining labyrinth, and at long last, I found him just chilling in a chair. Now, I personally don't really care for the guy, so I took out my throwing spear and spiked one into his unsuspecting head. Right, forgot about the collars. Alrighty then, instead I took a seat next to him and began chit-chatting, when he told me that the chair I was sitting on was strapped to a landmine that would paint me on the ceiling if I stood up. Not exactly a great first impression, but I was able to talk Mr. Domino off the metaphorical ledge here, and came to an agreement that it was in both of our interests to help each other. So he too agreed to meet me at the hologram fountain. Last on our list of bomb caller bros was Christine. So I journeyed through the villa mowing down some more ghastly homies when I shambled my way inside the medical facility. Now, much like Finding Dog, this place was riddled with radios and speakers, but some of them were hardwired into the wall, which somehow made them bulletproof. So I had to make my way all the way down into the basement, all while evading the glowing hollow bro that acted as security for the facility. I wish I could say I did this without a hitch, but that just wasn't the case. After shutting down the main power though, the hologram security was no more, and neither were the speakers. So I was free to find Christine, who happened to be hanging out in one of the auto docks. Damn, what happened to your face? Hey. After brushing up on my limited ASL skills, I realized I was an idiot, so that made for quite the awkward interaction. But eventually I was able to convince Christina to journey back to the fountain with me. And now that everyone was secured, Mr. Floating Head decided to chime in again to let us know that his plan was to gain access to the Serria Madre's casino vault. But before we could even get through the front gates, we had to enact a ceremony of sorts. And for some reason I was chosen as the resident tour guide, as I had to guide each and every one of our new friends to their positions to initiate the grand opening. After heavily debating it for 3 milliseconds, I decided to take Dog first. After absolutely annihilating a small army of ghost people, I tried to leave Dog to take care of the switches, a simple task. Seemingly. But then God, his alter ego, resurfaced, saying that not only would Dog be incapable of following the simple lever pulling sequence, but he too vowed to not help me, considering our earlier transactions. Then I reminded God that he really doesn't have much of a choice, just like Casper doesn't have much of a choice in the matter either. So basically, shut up and get the job done. He then vowed to break every bone in my body the next chance he got, but he also agreed to stay and do what was needed of him. So I guess it all worked out then. Great. With Dog, or I guess God, in place now, it was time to guide Dean to his rightful place on the map. So we both journeyed through the villa's adjacent complexes, taking out any glowing eyes that dared stand in our way. Eventually we made it to where Mr. Domino needed to stay, which was literally just some sparking electrical wires lying on the floor. Dean seemed pretty understandably put off by the fact that his entire job was to stand out in the open around a bunch of ghost people and hold 2 wires together. He then let me know that there was no way he'd stay here alone unless there were 2 holograms protecting the entrances. And because I needed this to go as smoothly as possible, I agreed and went off to find these damn holograms. I was able to find one of them right away, luckily, as it was located in the room right next to Dean, but the second one was not even close. And I spent way longer than I'd like to even admit trying to locate it. But at long last, after scouring the area, I found it, and now Dean was good to go. So now that only left Christine, which shouldn't have been too difficult, or so I thought. Rather than dealing with ghost people, now I had to carefully navigate the central control building, which was thoroughly laced with speaker systems. So I had to carefully navigate around all of them without losing my head. But somehow, even though I was shambling like a zombie, I was able to get through it with little to no issues. That is, until I reached the control elevator. You see, Elijah insisted the only way to get the grand opening ceremony to activate was a very cramped, dark room, and Christina is claustrophobic. And given that she was locked in an auto dock for a few weeks, I honestly can't blame her. So I searched around for a bit, for an alternative, and found that the terminal to hijack control of that switchboard requires an absurdly high hacking skill to operate, something that Casper just doesn't have. Now, you can actually bypass this hacking check with the passcode located in a locker nearby. But that too was locked, and it was requiring lockpicking skills that Casper doesn't have either. I was now out of options that wouldn't piss off Christina in the long run, which is seriously unfortunate, as thus far, the other two bomb caller buddies' relationships have been pretty professional and more or less accommodating, aside from God, but I prefer Dog anyways. Casper really needed to escape this place though, so I set aside my morals and sent Christine into the control chamber using the power of deception. Unfortunate, but at least the ceremony could now commence. So I journeyed out of the building and made haste to the control tower, taking care of a few ghost peeps in true ghostly fashion while I was at it. After flipping a switch and very much struggling with photo mode, I finally breached the front gates and entered the Serria Madre hotel. Now, even though God threatened to kill me if I tried to enter the hotel without him, it seems he and the others made it in before I did, only to be gassed again much like we did to even come here. Come to think of it, lore-wise, I'm not really sure that the gas would actually affect us, considering we're one of the ghost people. You know what? That's not important. But you know what is important? Turning on the damn power to this place, as I'm not going to be able to get the job done without it. So I wandered around the casino for a pretty long time looking for the key to the circuit room, only to find it hiding behind another locked door. After a while I located the key, and in no time I flipped the switch and the power was on. But now Elijah, the talking head guy, felt it was necessary to chime in once more, demanding that I eliminate all of the homies I had just met in this godless place. And I did begin the hunt for Dog, but that wasn't at all my intentions, as Casper was just trying to get out of this place alive with as minimal casualties as possible. So I found Dog hiding in the kitchen hotel. What? I found Dog hiding in the hotel kitchen, though he was about to nuke the place as he had popped the gas lines in 3 separate locations, filling up the place with methane gas. So, in the interest of not killing Dog, I carefully snuck around him, repairing the gas lines when I was out of sight. Though this wasn't without its fair share of mishaps, mind you. After stopping all the gas leaks, I was finally able to speak to Dog without getting absolutely obliterated. Though this conversation didn't exactly go as planned. I had hoped to save Dog, or at least God, from dying, but the only way to do this was through a level 50 speech check, which was way out of Casper's pay grade. So, unfortunately, I had to resort to putting the Dog down nice and carefully. But as if having to pass up on one speech check wasn't already enough, halfway through the battle he asked again for your help. But it requires yet another speech check in order to do so. So, sadly, after a few snaps of the bear trap, dog, and by extension God, were no more. After Casper came to terms with the trauma he just experienced, I journeyed to the theater hall to meet up with our old pal Dean Meister. Now, me and Dean were able to discuss things pretty civilly, surprisingly, but that's probably because he's the only one I was able to help out properly earlier. This was good, as he let me know that as soon as we were done speaking, those hologram guards from earlier would be sent to hunt me down. So I raced to the adjacent door and narrowly escaped from their line of sight. After disarming a few radios and sitting through a Dean Domino performance, Dean was now safe and, surprisingly enough, didn't want to kill me, so I could mark him off my list. Once again, the last one on the list was Christine, who had finally regained her ability to talk, and used it to remind me how much of an asshole I am for sticking her in the cramped control room.
So come on and get me, jackass. I'll have this floor security dissect you like an auto doc.
Fair enough. I journeyed through her self-made labyrinthian hotel halls and eventually found her chilling right by the entrance of the vault. But no matter what I said, all paths led to her trying to plant some lead in my skull. So, just as I did with Dog, I was forced to defend myself, and oh, did I take care of business. Okay. Perhaps I may have overstated my abilities. Let's run that one back. And after a hard-fought battle, Christina was 6 feet under, and I could finally gain access to the vault. I do find it kind of ironic that in my pursuit of trying to escape without any casualties, the only character I ended up being able to save was arguably the worst of the three. But I digress, as now the vault doors were opened and I could make my way into the pit of misery. Now, the vault did take a while with all the hologram guards and speakers and whatnot, but to be honest, it wasn't all that interesting, so for your sake, I'll skip ahead to the good part. Now that our journey was finally coming to a close, I opened the vault and found what was inside. But that mattered not, as what I needed couldn't be gained from within the vault. I needed out. And as soon as I noticed that the door to the vault was locked behind me, I started wondering where the floating head guy's been all this time. And then, boom, there he was up on the big screen. Elijah went into depth on why he wanted the Serria Madre's power and how he fully intended to kill me all along. Big surprise. After telling the geezer that I want nothing that the Serria Madre can offer, he still wouldn't open the doors. So I then told him that I would destroy everything he's worked so hard to build if he doesn't come down and open the vault doors himself. It took some convincing, but I was actually able to get him to come down, and now the vault was open. I tried to sneak to the exit, but he caught me red-handed, so I put down each of his laser turrets with a few well-placed spear throws, and then only he remained. But it may come as no surprise that Elijah was but a weak old man, and just a few hits from the bear trap fist sent him into the shadow realm where he belongs. But now that nobody was controlling the callers, I had to get the hell out of the Serria Madre's vault as fast as possible, as to not end up the same way as he did. And at what felt like the last possible second, I made it to the elevator and swiftly exited the Serria Madre hotel. And after removing my collar that bounded me to this place for so long, I finally left the villa and the Serria Madre in the past where it belongs. Proving that yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas's Dead Money DLC as a ghost person. I hope you guys enjoyed that slightly shorter themed run this time around. And, you know, I was actually thoroughly impressed with the amount of detail that was put into this playable ghost people mod. You know, from the walking and the jumping animations to the ability to change the hazmat suits like eye color, and so much more that I didn't even get to mess with throughout the run. I'd highly recommend giving it a try. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button as well so you never miss another absurd challenge run like this one. Also, if you guys have any ideas on what challenge runs I should do next, drop a comment down below. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, remember to smile.